Hello, everyone, and welcome to Indie Game Arcade, a podcast all about indie games. In this episode, we're talking about the rise of the Golden Idol and Ravenswatch. My name is Chris.
And I'm Joseph.
And I know why, okay, you guys didn't hear it, but I fumbled when I first started this, and I had to start over, and we were laughing. But it's because, I didn't clear some of the last episode's intro out of this, and it threw me off.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I didn't change all the text. And then I got all befuddled. Also, I've been so sick for days and my brain is just scrambled at the moment. So
yeah, we can, everyone I'm sure can still hear that too.
Yeah.
You definitely sound raspier today.
This is what I'm almost 40-year-old man with strep throat sounds like. So if you were ever... That was on your bucket list of things. Yeah. This is the first time I've had strep since I was a child. This is stupid. I got my tonsils taken out thinking hey, now I don't have to worry about that anymore. What gives? Why did I get those organs removed? Whatever.
What was even the point?
First game we're going to talk about here is The Rise of the Golden Idol, which came out on 11/12/24. That's just fun to say. November 12th, 2024. This was developed by Color Gray Games, published by PlayStack, retails for $19.99. At the time of recording right now, I believe it's on sale for $17.99, which is what I paid for when I picked it up. And for a quick description, the award-winning detective saga returns in this standalone sequel to The Case of the Golden Idol. Uncover the truth behind 20 strange cases of crime, death, and depravity in the 1970s. The world has changed dramatically. The sins of humanity have not. So this is definitely a follow-up in that the events of what happened in the first game have a small or they basically set the narrative for this sequel. So the story of this is 200 years after what happens with the Cloudsleys, that family, and you think the Golden Idol is kind of destroyed or lost to time. Basically, society has kind of forgotten about the Golden Idol and what it could do, and it's basically kind of chalked up to just being myth or legend. Much how we think of things Lemuria is, even though they use that in the game, it is also a myth, legend, folklore thing in our real life too. There's inklings of, you're starting to get a feel for maybe the Golden Idol isn't lost. Maybe there's something going on. And some folks are doing and seeing some mysterious things that may all point right back to it. So that's kind of the setup for the game. And taking place in the 1970s.
Does this, I'm sure there's some differences, but does this play the same as a previous one? Which I haven't played, just as to start this off. So everything you say is going to be, I'll just have to believe. I'll take your word for it because I have no idea how any of these games play. I just know the first one, at least, is kind of like a Mad Libs, kind of has a mechanic of that to it.
It kind of sort of, it's more of if you're thinking fill in the blank kind of thing, that's basically the mechanic. And it still has that. And I'll kind of explain in detail how that whole situation works. There are a few differences, but the major structure of everything is pretty much the same. And it's more of the stories, the scenes, and everything are different. And this one gets way more complicated in the types of scenarios that you're presented with. So you are this observer. You're not playing a specific character. You are an observer witnessing this timeline, this string of events, kind of learning what is happening and how everything relates. So you're given a scene, and it's usually something taking place, or it's the aftermath of what happened. So you click around on people, items, objects, whatever is available to look for potential clues. And as you do that, different words will be collected from them, whether those are names, dates, places, titles, sometimes it's even verbs. Like, if some guy is like, looks like he slipped and fell, you might end up with some verbs like fell or slipped or pushed. Those words might get added to basically this large word bank that you get. And then with each scene comes your objectives, which is to kind of understand the bigger picture, like identifying each person in the scene, because you're not like told who everybody is. So if you want to get the context to be able to understand what's happening in the scene and why it's important, you have to identify everyone involved, and you have to use all these clues and everything to figure out first who is who. So it might be glancing at, somebody's name tag, and then also finding someone else referencing that person within the scene to get, like, let's say their surname, whereas their name tag had their first name. It's things like that. So it's like everything is like very piecemeal, and you're collecting all these different things to try to figure out all this stuff. And kind of like you said, you were imagining like a Mad Libs kind of thing. So a lot of what it would look like is if we're going to talk about identifying everybody, you would get like a panel that shows the portraits of everybody in the scene. And then you have slots where you can put in two names, like a first name and a surname. And you have this huge word bank. And one of the things is you have way more words in your word bank that you've collected than you're going to use, like way more.
So it'd be like, let's say the words I got were like mustard and pipe. And then it's like, okay, I think it was Colonel Pipe in the library with the mustard. And then it's like, you're wrong. And you just reverse it, and then it solves the puzzle.
So it won't give you feedback until you, one, fill everything in. So like one of the other things is filling in what is happening in this scene. What's the bigger picture of this scene? What's happening? Who killed what, or how did this person die? When, why, how? And you're using those words from the word bank to fill it in. But you're having to do all this kind of on your own with no feedback until the very end. And it'll tell you like, two or fewer things are incorrect, or it'll tell you if you got it all correct, or if like more than three are incorrect, it'll just say incorrect. So when it gets to that point, it really isn't very handholdy. And a lot of times it is not obvious. Like there's definitely times where it becomes a head scratcher.
So progression wise, I guess I'm curious. So if let's say you get 2 or 3 wrong or something, and it tells you got those wrong, but you don't know specifically what, is the story just moving forward, or does it reset the scene and you kind of have to start over?
No, you were stuck sitting there until you figure it out. And they give you everything you need. The question is, are you observant enough to figure it out? So there's been a couple times that I was like so sure that I had something right, and I was getting the, 2 or few or incorrect. And I'm like, how? I don't get it. And it ended up being this simple little thing of me not looking at like this. I don't want to spoil anything, but something in the background that I just wouldn't have even thought of, because the background art felt insignificant to the scene, but it wasn't. So when I paid attention to that, I was just like, oh shit, like that's the missing piece. That means it wasn't this person, it was this person. Yeah. And then I got rid of that person, pulled in somebody else's name and filled it in, and I got it correct. So it's like, you really, really have to examine things closely to figure stuff out. Otherwise, like, you're just going to be stuck there and you don't progress.
Yeah. That's like the burning bear painting in Midsommar. That's like, that means nothing to me yet. And then it's like, oh, full circle.
Yes, basically.
Cool.
So there are a lot of cases or scenes. I think they said there's 20 in this game. A lot of those are grouped into chapters. And at the close of each chapter, there's this panel that you get where it's kind of like summarizing and also filling in some of the blanks of what happened overall in that chapter, almost like So for chapter 1, which I completed the first chapter basically is as far as I've gotten so far because sick and dying over here. I finished all the scenes and then I'm given this, it's called the story 1 and then story 2, this little book that you open up and it's like having you kind of look at, okay, overall, what's really happening? So you're kind of revisiting a little bit of what you already know. And then you're also filling in gaps between those scenes of like, okay, because this person did this and I know that something else happens in this scene, you know, you're filling in stuff that's connecting them. And you're also given like other little clues in addition to. So it's like having you figure out bigger picture stuff as well. And that's going to continue throughout the game. Now, in the original game, and I don't know if they'll do this here, but I imagine they'll probably do something like it. In the original game, once you finished all of the scenes, which were not nearly as many as there's going to be in this one, they gave you this huge scenario that kind of did that for the entire range of the game, the entire story. And you had to like go back and revisit like a whole bunch of the scenarios and relook at clues to really figure out like who's pulling the strings of everything. So these the end of these chapters are kind of like that. So I'm wondering, they might be doing like a bigger one at the end of the game too. I don't know, but at least you're getting that for each chapter, it seems like. And those are really intriguing too, because especially this one, you figure something out and it was driving me nuts because like I was trying to figure out this person's name and I could not figure it out for the longest time. And I figured it out because it was a doodle written on a notepad or like a Post-it note or something. And I was just like, oh my God, this person basically signed their name, but as a doodle. But if like I were to say what that doodle was out loud, I would get that person's name. But like that wasn't obvious and it took me forever to figure it out. And I was just like, oh my God, how did I not? So it's like, you know, it really crunches your brain.
Would there be any like replayability to a game like this? Because given that it's like so puzzle driven and very specific about the clues, I would think it'd be kind of a one and done situation. And I'm not saying like there's not plenty of content for that one and done. I'm just wondering, like, is this something you could replay potentially?
To me, it is a one and done that you could potentially replay, but probably like a while down the road, because it's one of those things where because a lot of the puzzles are complex and very, very complicated, you're not going to remember all the details and everything. You're not going to remember all the solutions. So it's definitely one of those ones that you could probably pick up and play again, but I would think you probably wouldn't do that for several years. Like, I wouldn't mind going back and playing The Case of the Golden Idol again, but like I just played it last year and I feel like I would probably remember too much to get the same kind of satisfaction out of it.
I feel like there would be some joy in maybe watching someone else play it in the same way that like after you finished it, in the same way that like after I watched like a great movie, I'm like excited to be with other people as they're watching and just to like see and gauge their reactions.
Oh yeah, seeing like the wheels turn on people and like when they have their like aha moments is very satisfying.
Yeah.
When you're like, okay, you get it too. Like, all right, you know?
Right. Or if they like come about and answer in a different way, it's like, oh yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, exactly. And then you might feel a little humbled. The art style really stands out. Like the art of all the characters is pretty cool. And the characters within the game are all real goofy and diabolical. And I enjoy that about this series. One thing that I lament a little bit about this sequel is that the original game was a lot more pixel art based. And this one has kind of gone away from that and replaced it with more of like a painted look. It still looks good and it's still enjoyable to look at and play, obviously. I liked the pixel art style, I think, a little bit more. So I think that's like one of the only drawbacks, and which isn't a drawback. That's just a style choice, personal preference. My own.
Yeah. Because I don't remember what the original one looked like, but I'm looking at the page of Rise, and I dig this painterly style. It's very stylized for sure.
Yeah. I think if I do have any gripe with it though, it would be with the UI. And I think the best way to describe it is basically like in the original game, you collected, I think, way less words than you did in this game, the sequel. Because of that, so in both games, you have a bar at the bottom of your screen, and all the words kind of congregate down there in the word bank in the original game. So you can kind of like see those words at all times. So then when you pull up the, different panels and stuff, you can just drag and drop those words wherever. In this game, you were really just toggling like all these different panels. So like the word bank is gigantic. They did, add a little ease of life thing where they added a button that you can toggle all your panels on and off at the same time, which is nice. However, it does get a little clunky feeling when, let's say you're in a scene and you go to investigate a body. So you click on that, a little pop-up window opens up, showing you the contents of what that person had on their person. And let's say one of those items is a letter. So then you click on that and you get another little pop-up window that shows you what's written on the letter. And then you're like, okay, there's some info in this letter and it collected some words for me. I know how to use that. I want to open up, toggle my panels on so I can move some of those letters where I know they're going to get used. So then you open up those and now you've got panels and panels and panels and panels all over your screen. And then it's just kind of a mess and a little clunky. So if anything, I think that they could have done with a bit more, a cleaner way of managing the amount of stuff on the screen. But I don't think it's enough to be a detractor from having a good time playing this game.
Okay.
So overall, I would still recommend this game like 100% if you love exercising your brain. It's not easy, so you can't go in thinking it's going to be a quick little detective point and click. This is a game you really got to sit with and think about. But as you start to figure out clues and get a feel for the bigger picture, it really makes you feel smart. So, and I'm going to be doing a Let's Play series of this over on YouTube for the next several weeks. Just probably starting maybe next week because I needed time to recover.
From your description and looking at the game, it looks like something I might try, but it's a tough sell for me just because I'm not like a big puzzle game person. But it sounds like for someone who is, this would be a really good buy.
I think it is a really interesting one to try out for people that I would say someone like you that isn't used to playing this genre of games, and whether that's just because it's not your style or you just haven't played very many. I think this is one to really try out and might get you interested in the genre. It's way more of a challenge than it appears to be, and who knows, you might end up really liking it.
Yeah. I guess is your library shared with me? If not, maybe we can set that up and I can try it out.
I think so. If it's not, we'll figure that out.
Yeah, figure it out so I can try it on your dime.
There you go. Then our next topic here is Ravenswatch. This was released September 26, 2024, developed by Pastech Games, published by Nacon?
Maybe.
Nacon? I don't know. The price is $24.99, and for a quick description, fallen heroes of old folk tales and legends, you are on the verge of a crucial battle against the nightmare invading and corrupting your world. A roguelike action game from the creators of Curse of the Dead Gods. Copyright. Playable solo or in online co-op. You did include that copyright logo there.
That was on the Steam page. I felt it was appropriate.
Yeah. So I'm very interested in this one. I haven't gotten to play it. But while I was sick, I did watch someone stream it for a little bit just to kind of get a feel for it. And it looks really cool from what I've seen so far.
Yeah. So to set it up, the story is essentially you're in the world of dreams. Reverie is what it's called. And it's been overrun by this corrupted force of nightmares or nightmare creatures of some sort. You're trying to fix all this up under the I guess, command of the Ravenswatch is the name of your group. And the heroes come in the form of like heroes from stories and legends, like Red Riding Hood, but there's a twist on everything in some way. Like in this case, Red Riding Hood, which I really like, is cursed with lycanthropy. So she is also the big bad wolf when day turns to night, because there is like a day-night cycle that goes through. Yeah. Each of the levels is like 3 days and 3 nights. So that's how that's how you're keeping track of like when the boss is going to come. So it's not like a progression. You're going from point A to point B to get to the boss. It's like you're just traveling around this open area and gathering up as much experience, items, and what have you, while the days are passing, and you're essentially kind of like trying to prepare yourself for the oncoming boss. And then you get like kind of sucked right into that boss zone when that 4th day arrives. Also, Sun Wukong is one of the characters that I enjoy playing. There's Geppetto he's like a beast. Like Geppetto is probably the best character in the game, at least from my experience with it, because like all of his like little Pinocchio like dummies that he pulls up are so strong and can really take all the hits for him in such a way that it's like him setting up his own little army. So there's a lot of different, what I really appreciate about this game is there's a ton of different like ways to play it, in that even though it's like pretty straightforward in a lot of ways, all the characters play very differently from each other. And I know like some people say that, but it's just like, oh, this one just has like a different kind of kick or whatever, or like throws out different kind of items. But these are like different play styles altogether. Like I was talking about Geppetto using kind of his army of puppets. And then there's Red Riding Hood, who it's like you're having to fight differently in day and night, because she's either human form or wolf form or werewolf form, and those are different battle styles altogether. Sun Wukong has a way different style. There's an Ice Queen in there, or Snow Queen, and obviously she's more just AoE and everything. So there's so many different play styles. They got
Aladdin, I think.
Yes, Aladdin's in there. Beowulf is in there.
Beowulf, that's right.
Yeah, Beowulf. I was playing as one of my first because he's either one of the starting characters or one that you unlock pretty early. I was trying him out. And his playstyle was so different than what I was expecting it to be, because he has a big sword. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to use this and melee everything. But it's like, oh no, like if I do that, I'm not doing very much damage at all. You have to use the worm on the dragon type of worm with the Y that's on your shoulder to like power up your attacks before you use them to really capitalize on that damage. Otherwise, you're doing like nothing. So it's finding that good mixture of like, okay, when can I bring in the dragon power into this, and when do I need to step back, and trying to like figure all that and like chaining it all together makes it a little more complicated than I was expecting his character as one of the first melee dudes to be.
Can I tell you what this reminds me of? And this is like very, very this is so stupid and really like loosely related.
Okay.
Do you remember on our old podcast, Cartoon Boom, when we talked about Mighty Max? And there was that episode where he had to go get all the like heroes from folklore together, and they had to go help him fight Skullmaster, and he got like the Monkey King, and he got Beowulf and stuff.
I mean, like, I can see reason, why that would remind you. Yeah.
Yeah. That just reminded me of that.
That's essentially what this is, just on a different scale. There's also I just remembered there's the Pied Piper also. And obviously you're using like all the rats that you're calling as a big part of your attack power. So it's like, that's
what I watched. That looked cool.
It was so fun. Like I've tried a little bit of most of the characters. I think maybe 2 or 3 I haven't yet, but after a couple like rounds of playing and understanding the game, I had a solid run with Geppetto, and I was able to get through it. So that like leads me kind of into the actual progression to the story. So after you fight through everything and you win, well, let me tell you how I guess stages play first. So when you're in these stages, there are different things you can do, like different ways of approaching it. Like you can either go and kind of like try to power level through by like just fighting different monsters or creatures, finding different treasures. There's hidden items around to where you're like going to look for this like giant red key in one part of the map to open a different vault somewhere else, fight waves of monsters and then get some treasure from that. So you can approach it like that. Or there's this like at least 1 or 2 quests on these big maps you can go to. And those have really good rewards, but can also be very challenging. Like you take quests from things like the Three Little Pigs, but it's like obviously like darker kind of versions of that. So you're essentially like, for the one whose house is made of stone, for example, you're going and gathering all these different stones from this like mine that's infested with these creatures. And so you're trying to bring that back. And then once you bring the stones back and like fortify his house better, like you have to protect it for maybe 30 seconds to a minute or something from this big wave of like strong monsters that are coming through. And if you're able to keep it alive or keep, it protected, then he'll reward you with like a legendary item. So it's like the quests are worth doing because you're going to get something really good out of it, but they are or can be very tough. Like one of them is like I was helping Sinbad the sailor because he got captured by some cyclops, but that cyclops is so hard, as at least the first couple times I tried to fight him. And like the whole time he has three sailors like hung up on his like in his cave, and one of them's Sinbad. And he will go periodically as you're fighting him and eat a sailor so that he can like regain health. And so you're also on a timer because if you take too long to kill him, he'll just go eat Sinbad and you lose the quest. And so it's like having to like fight this monster quickly who can take you out in a couple hits if you're not careful. Like I said, once you get through that though, you can get a really good reward out of it. It's just a matter of like, it's kind of like deciding a risk reward kind of thing. Is it worth my time to go and try to get this? Because if I lose and I lose the run, or if I fail the quest and I've just wasted a lot of time. So it's like, am I confident enough to go do a quest, or should I just like kind of nickel and dime my way up to getting some more experience so that I can survive and have enough to face the boss that's coming? So there's a lot of that. And there's 3 different sections kind of inspired by different things. Like one of them is like kind of dark fantasy forest. One of them is like kind of Arthurian legend. At one point you kind of have to fight. On a quest, if you go and choose to do it, you're helping, I think, Morgan fight like a dark King Arthur, like a possessed King Arthur or something.
Oh, wow. That sounds cool.
It's so cool. Like there's so many different like tales of legend. There's a lot that I don't even like think I understand where it came from. But I know like most or all of this is tied to legend in some fashion. That's
such a cool idea. I love that.
And as far as like progression goes, like as you're going through, you're getting new talents, new skills, as you're getting experience or new items that you can purchase if you've gotten money through various acts. After each run, whether you win or not, you're unlocking new heroes up to the total of the 9 so far, along with like new items and new skills for future runs that you didn't have the chance of getting before. If you win a run, you unlock additional difficulty levels that can increase the challenge of future runs. And I would also assume like allow you to get like greater rewards. I haven't done one of the harder runs yet or tried one because I'm sure I would get my ass kicked on at least the first few, since like even the normal run was pretty challenging. And you like I said, you complete those optional quests if you choose to, and you can also unlock skins for all the characters. There's a bunch of different skins. None of them they're mainly just like color changes. I don't think there's any like cosmetic skin changes or anything, at least not yet. But sure. I know the developers have a lot of like future freed and paid content planned. And so there's a lot to look forward to with all that even.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering, like, this game seems right before, like, constantly adding, like, new heroes and maps and stuff.
Yeah, totally. Like, it's a great template set up for that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's, like, almost, like, an endless supply of folklore to pull from. So, like, even right off the bat, I'm like, I don't think he's one of them, but like Hercules would be a real easy one to throw in here somewhere. That would be really fun, or Gilgamesh or something.
Right.
That'd be so cool.
A lot of these are like, they are public domain. So it's like you can use whoever, like to whatever degree you want to, for a lot of these fairy tale heroes, especially.
Right. We're gonna see Winnie the Pooh.
I hope so. Eventually, actually, it'll be really fun. There is like a dark fantasy atmospheric soundtrack to it. And that feels like really appropriate. Like as you're going through, like you feel pumped to keep fighting, and it just feels right. Like I really enjoyed the soundtrack. Art style is very comic book-esque, so of course I like that. It's kind of like, if you liked the style of Curse of the Dead Gods, then this is pretty much that carried over, with maybe a little bit more comic book-esque in this one. Yeah, I think like overall I would definitely recommend this to people who enjoy like a challenging roguelike. Not that I think it's like the hardest one I've ever played or anything, but I do think like it's going to take some skill to get through, or at least like multiple runs to kind of figure out what your strategy is going to be. Because like I said, whatever hero you choose, you're going to have to adapt to their strategy specifically, because no two heroes really play the exact same, at least from my experience.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to like hopefully being able to give this a shot, especially like just the idea of this game with all the different folklore stuff and everything. Like, that's tickling my brain for sure.
Yeah.
Of wanting to get in there, all the different characters. And like, honestly, the gameplay loop seems really good from everything I've seen so far.
Yeah, and you're also unlocking like different parts of like the overall story for each hero as you're using them. So
cool.
I don't know like what happens after you unlock like their full story or anything, or if anything happens, it might just be a kind of a cosmetic thing or just a lore thing. But you're unlocking so there's a lot of different like small unlocks that you're doing in addition to the larger kind of campaign you're going through. I don't think yet that there's any kind of like grander thing that you're fighting towards with those like harder difficulties, like in some of the games we talked about previously, where it's like, oh, you beat it once, but now you've got to beat it 100 more times to get the true ending. I don't know that there's like a true ending, quote unquote, that I've seen so far, unless I've just like not like played through it enough to really get to the point that it's doing that. But I would say right now, as is, like it's probably just this like pretty condensed amount of content with the freedom of, with the template, at least, like we were talking about, for the developers to set up like different kind of story arcs to it, adding different bosses, different new characters and skins and what have you. So even as it is right now, I would recommend picking it up. But there's also the promise of there's even like a developer kind of like roadmap of some things they have planned. So a lot to look forward to in the future, even though even as is, it's a good purchase for $25.
Yeah, it sounds like it, with a lot obviously coming down the line. So definitely one to go check out.
Absolutely.
So as far as other games we've been playing this week, it's been slim. It's been quite a week.
Oh yeah.
I only got to try one other game. I played a demo this week for a game called "Is This Game Trying to Kill Me?" I
heard about this one. At least I heard the name of this one recently. So go on. Yeah. I'm curious to hear about it.
Sure. So this is an escape room type horror game, sort of. So you're stuck in a cabin deep in the woods, and there's a computer in the middle of it. You're trying to find a way out of this cabin, right? Like you're locked in there. There's this real creepy dude that kind of talks to you through the window, and he'll spook you once or twice. But yeah, he's keeping you there. But again, there's this computer there. If you go to the computer, there is an old school video game on it that you can play, and playing levels on that computer game will cause certain things to happen in the cabin that you're in. You might get to a specific something in the game, and then something unlocks in the room that you're in.
That that feels like Inscription-y in a way.
Yes, absolutely. Let me tell you something. The visual style of all of this feels very much Inscription. Everything about this game feels very Inscription-y, except for the fact that there's no cards, it's not anything like that. It's not a roguelike thing. What's really interesting too is like the video game itself looks kind of like the game part of Inscription when you get to that like second half of that game, whereas the overworld, quote unquote, like in the cabin feels a bit like when you're stuck in the Inscription cabin, except this one is a lot more rendered, I would say, and there's obviously a lot more you can do, a lot more you can walk around. So
I just saw, sorry, I was on the page and I just saw like as you were talking through it, them interacting with something in the game, and it's like pull a lever, and he pulls it, and then he looks over to the left and gets shot with arrows in the head in the actual room. That's why I was laughing. Yeah, he says like an instant death. Yeah,
so. In addition to like, not only does it like do things in the room, which you do have to do to progress, but you could cause yourself some consequences. There's like a part in this demo where like you have to do something, and then all of a sudden like bombs start dropping in the actual cabin that you're in, and you have to like leave the computer and start like trying to jump away from these bombs as they're landing around you. It's pretty cool.
This does look cool.
Yeah, it's a very sinister but playfully sinister, much in that same vibe of Inscription. Like I said, visually it looks a lot like it. So atmospheric. I really had a great time with it. I think it was fantastic. I tried the demo, but I'm really interested in purchasing the full game, which is $14.99 on Steam.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you played through the whole demo.
Yeah, I did.
Okay.
And yeah, you get through the full demo and it tricks you when you get to the end of the demo. You feel played for a fool.
Okay. So, you know what? This, even though I was like, I don't know about puzzle games, like this one looks real cool. So I'm definitely adding this one to my wish list and probably going to purchase it because it is on sale for $12.74 right now.
There we go. Like I definitely would recommend it. It was super, super cool.
Because I had a great time with Inscription, so immediately this is appealing to me.
Oh yeah, Inscription probably like one of my favorite, if not my number one favorite indie game of all time.
Absolutely game of the year it came out.
Oh, for sure. Listen to me sounding all 90s. Oh, for sure.
Well, you're not wrong.
So what about you?
Okay, so I have this is like an anti-rant, I'll say. Because last time...
Are you doing the thing that I said where now you're trading again and now you're going to be nice about Vampire Survivors?
Yes, actually, 100%. That's exactly what I'm going to do. Because, okay, so like we've been talking about, I've been super busy this week. Chris has been busy being sick. I've been busy at a work event this week. So I haven't had a lot of time to play anything, which is why this is what I'm bringing to the table. What I spoke about and ranted about last week a lot was Vampire Survivors because I had just jumped back into it. I wasn't having a great time because I was trying to just invest too much time into it as I would with a normal game. And it's just not necessarily suited for that type of gameplay because it can get very repetitive. And there's a simplicity to it where it's just like kind of mind numbing if you spend too long with it, like if you spend too long of, sessions with it. And so I was kind of feeling a lot of that last week. So this week, I wanted to say that I actually, earlier in the week, I watched a brief documentary on the creation of this game. And there was essentially an interview with the creator, Luca Gallant. And long story short, his whole dedication to the process and keeping this game simple and like maybe not even like smartly affordable at the time that he actually created it. Like he wanted to keep it like a really cheap price, even if it wasn't the smartest decision, just for consumers in general, which I find kind of interesting also because of his background as a coder for a gambling app company which you can immediately see in like when you open a treasure chest in Vampire Survivors, you hear all those like appealing sounds, or it's like, yeah, I won.
Yeah.
And so it's like that whole kind of thing. Yeah. Yep. And so like he's pulling that obviously from his time and experience with those gambling apps. So I just thought that was a really interesting thing. And it gave me a lot of appreciation for him as a person and as a creator. And then in turn, this game itself and its uses, what it's been useful for. And for me, I'm not going to say it's like my favorite game ever or anything. Like I wouldn't go that far. But this week, being as busy as I was, I didn't have a lot of time to play anything, but in my gaps of free time between the work events and being back at the hotel, or just even on my flights, I played through the Castlevania DLC on my laptop, and that really helped me understand the value of a game like this in filling those gaps that you have just a short time to play something, you don't want to learn something new or invest too much time in like complicated mechanics. So you go into something like this and it still has a lot of depth to it if you choose to really dig in and unlock some of these like, I guess tougher to get characters. But on the surface, it's like a pretty simple thing to just jump in and play, and satisfying enough to where it's like, cool, I achieved something in about 15 minutes. And that is where I have a newfound appreciation of Vampire Survivors and what it's been useful for me this past week.
We did it, folks. We did it. We accomplished our goals.
I had a full 360. No, a full 180 on it. 360, I'd be going exactly back to where I was.
Yeah, that one makes sense. But we did it. We brought him into the fold. I'm
back. I'm still not going to play it on mobile, though. But good for them for using a non-predatory ad method on their mobile
you're still
game.
Playing it wrong then. So as far as upcoming indie titles on our radar, wish list, or play calendar, Mercury Abbey is coming out November 22nd. This one reminds me a lot of that game you and I played together a long time ago. I think we streamed it, Beacon Pines. I know we've referenced this so many times, but we really had a good time with that.
We had a great time with that one, yeah.
So it's kind of an interactive fiction and investigative story with some supernatural elements and
animal people.
Yeah, and animal people. And maybe there's more to it too. I'm not sure, but the art is what has me really interested in this. The pixel art and the use of the lighting is gorgeous. And then when you talk, you get like the larger hand-drawn kind of like cut-ins that appear of the characters and stuff, just like Beacon Pines would have. So overall, it just looks really cool. The story seems pretty interesting. So I'm looking forward to seeing some reviews on that one and possibly playing that one as well.
There's also, you'll see immediately if you open the Steam page, I'm going to say picture number 3, or really the first picture is a sexy wolfman without a shirt on. So
yeah,
need I say more?
I wasn't going to throw our furry friends. Like, I wasn't going to try to make them feeling rabid with the description, but yeah, it might have some furry leanings. So
it looks like it, but that doesn't like downplay that it does look like a quality game.
Yeah. So to our furry friends, you might be really into this one too.
Yeah. Congratulations.
There you go. Luminine Night is another one I was really interested in. This comes out 11/28. This is a story-rich detective adventure game where you play as Detective Foster and his daughter to solve a serial murder spanning over a decade. Interrogate, infiltrate, solve puzzles, explore crime scenes, and gather testimony and evidence. What I like about this is that it looks like there is a variety of different things to do as you investigate, including like in the trailer, it looks like the daughter is having to like stealth, like hide from security guards and stuff in buildings as they're walking by, and then try to go back out and pick locks and take pictures of stuff. And I just think that that's a really cool aspect of it that it just makes it more interesting. It's very atmospheric, very noir. The visual style is like slightly anime leaning, I would say, but not like fully anime or anything. But I think it looks really neat. I'm looking forward to this one. And then the last one is Sea of Stars, Throes of the Watchmaker DLC. That's not coming out till spring 2025, but I just found out today and I'm excited. When that does come out, that'll probably be my episode on Sea of Stars as a whole, including that content, because I got to talk about that game in detail at some point.
I was going to say, I got to play it at some point. I kickstarted that thing and I still haven't touched it.
I know our names are in the credits, so you should probably do it at some point.
Yeah, if for no other reason, at least to see my name.
Just to see your name. And they just released an update for 3-player co-op as well, which is really cool. So,
wow.
Yeah, and there's a few more things that they had added to it in this latest update. And basically, from what I understand, this update kind of made the game what the original vision was for it. So, yeah, that's pretty exciting. So I'm excited to see all that content and the DLC once it lands in spring.
For me, I just have a couple things to talk about. Lake of Creatures. For me, for us, for everyone, really. Lake of Creatures is one that just came out the day that we're recording this, 11/15. It is a fast-paced action fishing roguelike where you're on a quest to save the lakes from mutated creatures. You catch fish, find treasures, and conquer enemy-riddled, random-generated lakes. So this one looks wild, and I haven't played it yet, but I'm probably going to pick it up, honestly, right after this episode because, it looks really fun. So you are just this dude on a boat you're just trying to fish, but you're being interrupted by all these, weird, giant alligators, I don't know, angry crabs, things like that. And you're, blasting them with, a shotgun or something, or just whatever gun you have. So it's got, the same kind of roguelike mechanics. But given that it's a fishing sim as well, I'm just really curious to see how this feels. And it looks like a ton of fun. So definitely going to play that one. It only has 5 reviews right now. They're all positive.
Crazy.
Yeah, they're all positive. So that's a good sign. But it's not getting enough attention. So that's why I do want to bring it up.
Yeah, and that other game I was talking about, Is This Game Trying to Kill Me? Does not have a lot of reviews for what I think it should. It's got 120 or something. So
maybe we should start leaving reviews as Nerd Sloth.
We probably should.
The second thing I want to talk about is also a DLC. This is River City Girls 2 Double Dragon DLC. And that came out.
That sounds perfect.
Yeah. Oh, it looks perfect too. And okay, so it came out on the 12th of November for Switch, PS5, and Xbox. It's on some things for PC, I think, in some PC stores, but it's not on Steam yet. It's still coming soon to Steam. I don't have a date for that. I'm probably going to wait for the Steam. Well, I have to because that's where I picked up River City Girls 2. So that's just DLC for that game. In this one, you can play as the Double Dragons, Billy and Jimmy Lee.
Yeah, and I just saw who voices them.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. So it's got a full story integration of these characters, different cutscenes and everything. And the voices of these characters are the Game Grumps themselves, Dan Avidan as Billy and Aaron Hansen as Jimmy. And I heard some of them, the voice acting they were doing, and it just sounds so fun. New vocal song performance by Hansen and Avidan with music by the River City Girls series composer Megan McDuffie, and new Dojo Master Boro. I don't know what that means exactly, but it's probably a character I should know the name of.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so that looks like a really fun addition. And really, I just need to spend more time with that game. I think you and I might have played it once.
Yeah, we never finished it though.
No, so
yeah, it was very fun.
Yeah, really great game, and has a lot of nods to other cool fighting games. Even Combo Tribes, which was a game that I played in my childhood on my Super Nintendo, and I still have a fond memory of. So I'm whoa, I haven't heard anyone talk about Combo Tribes or Combat Tribes in so long that I really need to play this just because they're honoring that game.
And we do love us some Double Dragon.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, that sounds great. I didn't realize that was coming, so I'm gonna have to check that out when it comes.
Yeah, I've got it's on my wish list, and I've got my eyes out for it.
Yeah, heck yeah, that sounds great. You know what else sounds great? You sharing this episode with someone who loves indie games. That would be fantastic if you could do that. You can catch me playing some of the games we talked about on the show over on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/nerdsloth when I'm not dying It'll get up there, I promise. It just didn't happen in time for this episode this week. And catch hundreds of hours of bonus content, including a bonus podcast for those at the $5 tier over at the Nerd Sloth Treehouse, which is something you can join by subscribing at patreon.com/nerdsloth. We also have a subreddit, which is r/Indie Game Arcade, where we post reviews on indie games. Some of the ones we've talked about on the show, some of them aren't ones we've talked about on the show. So if you want to read reviews that we're keeping secret from you, go over there and they won't be secret anymore.
I'm going to start playing some more games too, or at least recording some gameplay, because I finally set my new my camera back up after I got my new standing desk. So that's going to be ready to go, and you can see my beautiful face while I play all these games we're talking about.
Yeah, you'll see my ugly face on all the other ones. My sad graying face.
Aw, we're both beautiful.
That's game over for us. My name's Chris.
I'm Joseph.
And we'll continue on the next episode.
Continue!
Indie Game Arcade is recorded and produced by Sloth Creative. If you're looking for more gaming content, head over to youtube.com/nerdsloth. For additional podcasts, go to nerdsloth.com. If you'd like to support the show, there are multiple tiers available at patreon.com/nerdsloth, with hundreds of hours of bonus content from everything we do at Sloth Creative, including bonus gameplay videos of the games we talk about on the show. The theme music for the show is Retro Game Tapes by Audio Line. If you'd like to get in touch with us, or if you're an indie game developer and would like us to consider reviewing your game, send us an email to podcasts@nerdsloth.com with the subject line Indie Game Arcade.